No, this is not clickbait at all. My wife did leave me, and it is one of the best things she's ever done. But for full transparency, and I'm sure if you already follow me on Instagram, you will know me and my wife are still together. We are very, very happy. But 7 years ago, she did leave me, and to this day, I stand by the fact it is one of the best things she's ever done for me. Now, this video could be an hour long. I could go into great detail as to how it happened, why it happened, what I've learned since, but I'm going to give you the synopsis. I'm going to give you the short version so that hopefully you can take something away from it that you can sort of apply to your own life. Now, if I go back to childhood, and I'm going to try my best not to bore you to tears, but parents divorced, remarried, fine. Got through primary school, got to high school. I lived with my mum and my stepdad. I would go and visit my dad and my stepmum at the weekends. But as we got to, or as I got to high school age, my mum and my stepdad bought a caravan on the outskirts of Blackpool. We lived in the Manchester area. So at a weekend, I would alternate between going to the caravan with my mum and my stepdad or going to visit my dad and my stepmum in Manchester. So all throughout high school, I had no control over where I was at the weekends. I was never around. So when I went to school on a Monday, I always felt like a little bit of an outsider because everybody that I was at school with was talking about what they did at the weekend and what they got up to, but I was never a part of it because I was never around. And let's be clear, I'm not saying I had a bad childhood, and I definitely had friends at school, but I didn't have those really close connections and those, I never had a best friend. I never had really close friends. On reflection as an adult now, they were probably more like acquaintances because I was never around at a weekend to spend good quality time building these friendships. So I left school, we moved to Blackpool, and, you know, like most kids, I got into my mid to late teens and started drinking, started partying, started going out several times a week. And when I was 20, I met Lisa, who is now my wife. We've been together 19 years. 6 to 12 months into our relationship, it became apparent that I wasn't great at being in a relationship because she was my first proper relationship. I'd been in short term relationships before, a couple of weeks, couple of months, but Lisa was undoubtedly my first proper girlfriend, first proper relationship. Now, let's be clear, she was definitely not a party girl. She wasn't out all the time, but she's got very close friends and she's got a very close family. So she would go out for lunch with friends, she would go out for lunch with a mum and a nan and, things like this. And I hated it. Like, fucking hated it. And I would try and control and manipulate every situation, where she went, what time she got back, who she was going with. And it was never, ever a lack of trust. It was that she was having fun doing something and I wasn't. The only time I was sort of at peace or happy for her to go and do something without me is if I was doing something. So if I was out with my friends, that's fine, you can go and do something with your friends. But if I'm stuck at work and you're out for lunch with your friends, I would make it my mission that she didn't enjoy it. I would be sending her horrible messages, making her life miserable. And this sounds really fucked up when I say this, but I became very, very good at turning things around to make it her fault, which, as I say all this, it sounds like I'm talking about somebody else, or it feels like I'm talking about somebody else because I am so far removed from that person now that, yeah, it's mental, absolutely mental. Anyways, the years went on, things got progressively worse to the point where she just wouldn't go anywhere. I didn't know this until a few years later, but she would get invited to go out for a few drinks with friends, or for a meal, or for lunch, or to watch a show, or whatever it might be. And she would make excuses like she was working, or she was out with us, or whatever it might be, because she knew it just wasn't worth the hassle. And her best friend was having a hen do in Manchester. She went because she was maid of honour, and I lost my shit. And this was around about 7 years ago. I lost my shit. I was sending her absolutely awful messages demanding that she came home. She refused, quite rightly. And I just messaged all through the night, just all through the night. Just they got progressively more abusive to the point where in the morning she was like, I'm done. I can't live like this. And I tried my best. I was like, look, just come home, we'll talk about it. Because history told me that if she comes home, I'll just manipulate the situation and make it her fault. But no more. She wasn't going to come home. She wasn't prepared to talk about it. I'd pushed her far too far. And this was it. She was done. We've got a son. He was young at the time, so luckily he wasn't exposed to any of this. But she wasn't prepared to carry on living a life like that. And rightly so. So she left. And I thought my life was over. I thought my marriage was over. I thought my family was over. Um, and I had a decision to make. Do I continue living as I am? And potentially she never comes back. And let's be clear, at this point, I didn't even anticipate that she was coming back. Like, as far as I was concerned, it was done. And I wouldn't have blamed her if she didn't come back because I'd treated her like shit. Like I said, this wasn't every day, but just, you should be able to go out for lunch with your mum or your friends without your husband giving you shit. So I had a decision to make: continue living my life the way I am, or step up as a man and accept that I have issues that I need to address because I'm a father and I need to become a better man for my son. So I self-referred through the GP. I went to therapy. I did 6 or maybe 8 weeks of CBT therapy. And as I went through this process, it became abundantly clear that these control issues stem back to childhood. Because I had this control taken away from me throughout high school, where I was always either at the caravan or at my dad's, and I always felt a little bit excluded. As I got into my adult years and I didn't have the shackles of my parents and things like that, I was trying to regain all of this control that I never had. But this point in my life, I'm in a relationship. So how do I try and regain control? I was trying to control where my wife went and what she did. So I went through CBT now. About a week after she left, the only communication we had was in relation to my son, because my wife's a nurse, she works shifts, so obviously I was having my son on the days that she was working. I told her that I'd referred myself and I was going to go to therapy. And at this point, it wasn't in some sort of attempt to try and win her back, but I owed it to her to let her know that I'd acknowledged I had issues, and that was taking responsibility. And ultimately, I was doing it for our son and for myself. Anyway, 2, maybe 3 weeks later, we met for lunch by her request, and she said, "Look, I appreciate that you've accepted responsibility and you've took control and you've took action by going to therapy. This is it though. If I come back, this does not happen again." And ultimately, she just wanted to know that I'd accepted responsibility, and that I wasn't going to try and blame her for stuff that wasn't her fault. Because let's face it, like I said before, none of this shit was her fault. In a healthy relationship, you should both be able to go and do things without each other, without either or giving you shit, you know? So she came back. It was tough to start off with because obviously I'd hurt her. I'd said a lot of hurtful things. I had to regain some trust. But as time went on and I went through therapy, and I embarked on basically a lifetime journey of personal development and self mastery, I committed at that point to becoming the best version of myself as a father, as a husband, and as a man. And to this day, I stand by the fact that Lisa leaving was the best thing she's ever done for me. Because if she hadn't, who knows where I would be right now. Potentially, we could still be together, but we could be living an absolute fucking miserable existence. My son's 13, so he would be very aware of my habits and my behaviours, and God forbid he'd picked those up. Or she'd stayed with me for a little bit longer, left, and I would be divorced. Who knows? I don't know. But this is why I stand by the fact it's the best thing that she ever did, because it was the big wake up call I needed to take responsibility and accept that I had issues. Go to therapy, talk to someone, figure out why I was acting the way I was, and change. And I have. And like I said at the start of the video, me talking about this, it feels as though I'm talking about someone else, because I don't care if she goes out for lunch with her friends or with her mum or goes to Manchester and stays over and watches a show or anything like that. I really don't, because that's a fucking healthy relationship. You should be able to do that. So the reason I'm sharing this is just to give you a little bit of an insight into me and my life and what's brought me to this point, but also just to sort of give you hopefully a bit of an inspiration or a bit of a light bulb moment to think that sometimes when we think that we're going through a fucking shit time, like, I can't believe this is happening, this is the end of the world. It's not. Because sometimes the worst times in our life can turn out to be some of the best things that ever happened to us. Some of my biggest periods of growth as a person have come off the back of shit going wrong. So look deep within. If something goes wrong, ask yourself, is it as bad as it seems? Or is this something that I can learn from, grow, develop as a person? And can I take a positive away from this to become a better man? Because if you've got a family, all of these things are an opportunity to become a better man for them. This is why I'm so passionate about helping guys do the same. I've been at rock bottom with my physical and mental health, and I've gone on a journey and seen the transformation that it's had on my physical health, my mental health, my mindset, my relationships. And that's why I help other guys do the same. So hopefully you took something away from this video. If nothing else, just a little bit of an insight into me and my life. As always, any support on the video will be greatly appreciated. If you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button, and I'll be back soon with another video.